What are you gonna do when you're stuck with your friends inside your room? What are you gonna do when you're stuck with your friends with nothing to do? You're gonna go to OffWorld. Go to OffWorld. It's where you talk about movies that you've seen. Talk about movies in your dreams. You go to OffWorld. Yeah. Let's talk OffWorld.
Just take a portable DVD player into the bathtub.
Portable what?
Into the bathroom? Or bathtub. Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry, I heard it wrong.
I mean, you guys have fun with that.
You can sit on the toilet and watch us. It's fine.
No.
Is it Jennifer Connelly in that one?
Yep.
That was like peak Jennifer Connelly for me.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful woman.
Mm-hmm.
I think Noah was
Exactly.
peak Jennifer Connelly for me.
Okay.
One's like one of those movies that's quotable like Ghostbusters.
Noah?
No, Rocketeer. Even today, I took my kids bowling, and every time my son, because he's 5, and he's like manhandling the ball like this because he's still a little guy, and every time he goes up to the line to roll the ball, I go get him, kid, every single time, and it gets him all riled up, and he like Hulk smashes them because of that. And then I'm like, oh, Paul Sorvino. You know, that was one of my favorite parts of that movie, that little simple moment right there.
Yeah.
So
Dooch has no idea what you're talking about.
I know, it's okay.
Dude, when you go to direct your first movie ever,
Yep.
I'm going to give you a short list of movies to watch and to try to emulate. And The Rocketeer will be on that list. I've always said I would love to. I don't think I'm qualified for it, but I definitely think I could fake it. If I was to teach a cinematic masterpiece type of a class in college, I would have my list of movies that are considered perfect movies. And not that they might not be your favorite or perfect in content, but as far as storytelling goes and the movie goes, I would consider them perfect movies. Like they did what they were supposed to do and they did what they set out to do, which obviously Love and Thunder is not on that list, but
So what's
I think that movie did exactly what it intended to do.
what's your list? What's your list of you can't do all that spiel and not give us the list.
didn't do
So,
what
the Blip.
Yeah, I want his list first.
I'll give you a short.
Yeah, the
list
short.
of
Three of your perfect movies.
Rocketeer.
That's one.
You listening? That's one.
That's one. Yep.
Rocketeer, Princess Bride,
Yep.
and the third one.
Yep. Right
It
there.
is a Goofy movie.
100% agreed. 100%.
I have
Just
never
as-
watched that.
You son of a bitch.
I'm an old man!
Yeah,
Dude,
it's
you would
funny. Wait,
It holds up.
You go
And now
from the boy's perspective, and then now we're at the dad perspective, and but as far as storytelling goes, it just tells a good story. Like it sets you up. It does what it's supposed to do. I don't know how to describe it, but those 3 movies I would just use as, hey, if you want to make something good, this has the bones of good storytelling.
a Goofy movie
one that I will add.
It's the perfect coming-of-age story done with Disney characters. I mean, it's tight from beginning to end, like Matt said. And as you get older, it only gets better because now you're shifting and you're seeing Goofy's point of view. But at the same time, you're still reminded of what it was like when you were a kid, and you can still understand Max. And for a movie where there's no real... Well, the antagonist switches. Like, Goofy and Max are both protagonists and antagonists, depending on which side you're looking at it from. And so it doesn't try to do anything, over the top. It doesn't try to, have some big climax. It is. And it's just a great snapshot of this father and son summer journey.
Hey, Sean, sorry, Dooch cut you off there. What were you going to say?
There is a 4th one And now that I'm thinking about it, it is quite similar to The Rocketeer in aspect, if you think about it. And we've actually reviewed it.
I knew this one was coming.
Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
I cannot think of a single moment in that movie that is wasted, that I would cut from it. Every single bit adds up to the larger picture. Every single thing from the beginning makes you cheer those characters on by the end of that movie when they're actually going up against the big bad and all that. It's the same as The Rocketeer. Here's this guy that, holes in my pockets and the plane's being held together with spit and baling wire, as Peavy says, and he ends up with that rocket pack, just like the aliens come down and get Tim Allen to help them, and the next thing you know, it's a bigger adventure both times. And you care both times when the guy's going up against... And I love, in The Rocketeer, just to go there really quickly, I love in The Rocketeer that it is not him fighting the Nazis and winning World War II. I love that it is just this tiny little segment of this, they're going on their, what is it, the world tour with the Nazi, it wasn't the Hindenburg, but the Nazi Zeppelin coming around. Say hello to us, boys, when you get to Hollywood. And I love that it's just, he takes them out, but it was all in the purpose of a smaller reason. And it never was about him needing to be a hero or be the big superhero by the end. He's still the same guy at the end of the movie. Just he appreciates things a little bit differently. So, just saying.
And now I need to.
There's no cool rock monsters, though.
I would add one more to that.
Does he manage to get his shirt off? And yes, I cut Jesse off. But does he manage to get his shirt off?
No, but I'm okay with that because... The Rocketeer is The Rocketeer. I'd rather have Jennifer Connelly get her shirt off in the movie, personally.
See, that was a time in movies, Jesse, you're up after this, but that was a time in movies when, that guy, he was so cool. Yeah. But he never had to he never had to go where you assume characters need to go now as far as, shirtless or, things you know what I'm saying? He just was a cool guy.
They would have, I bet you any money, if they did the movie now, they would have had him have to take his shirt off after he takes the first, he's there at the airfield and he ends up saving the other pilot, but then when he flies off, he ends up skipping over there's a little pond or whatever, and they would have just had him take off his jacket, take off his shirt, and there's a shirtless scene. And it's thank you. I didn't need that. And I love that he just uses the rocket to push the car back so they could get away before anybody caught them and all that. It's great.
Exhaust,
Jesse.
That exhaust from the jetpack gets him pretty dirty.
I will say...
He'd have to, clean himself afterwards.
Cliff Secord in that movie, casting, was it Billy Campbell?
Mm-hmm.
Casting him, he was the more relatable everyman Maverick.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Maverick was the cool, Cliff was kind of the block-headed, alpha male, but he wasn't the cocky, arrogant SOB that Maverick is. Even though we love him.
When you're referencing Maverick,
not the guy in My Wife Is Gonna Kill Me chat.
Top Gun.
Top Gun.
Oh, because I was going to say, if you actually want to throw another movie on this list, the movie Maverick is phenomenal.
I haven't seen it.
No, the movie I was going to add is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Original theatrical cut, not the crap extended cut that's out now.
He's going to kiss you.
Are you serious? All I'm saying, Jesse, is I've never watched somebody get more beautiful. But I think I am.
The only movie that you could do to make him basically propose to you on here is if you put Waterworld on the list, and then it's just all bets are off. He would run away with you.
I fully understand that Waterworld is not on this list, and it's on some other great lists. But yeah, you open the opening scene, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the fact that people wanted to complain about his accent just takes away from the whole fact that that movie is a wonderfully done movie.
Yeah. Well, that's all they could say. Oh, he doesn't have the accent.
Yeah.
That's all. Really, that's all you got.
I think, like, looking back at them, like, there's a lot of good in that movie, but the one thing that still gets me, and I think, you might have been the one to bring this up to me when I was younger, Jesse, but you were like, when he got caught, the Crusades were only like a couple months old, and he was in that prison for so long. And then when he's training people to fight, you were like, that doesn't really mesh with everything. And it's like, how much battle did he see based on how long was it? But at the same time, like, I always enjoyed the fact in that movie when he's fighting, it's not the typical Hollywood fighting. He's legitimately like, oh shit, he's swinging at me. Oh god, and he's like jumping over things to get out of the way and all that at the end of the movie. But
their sword fight in the end of the movie was not like the cool epic Star Wars.
No,
like, they looked awkward as hell.
They made it hard for him to. They made it hard for him to lift up that sword. Rickman.
Yeah.
Is that his name, Rickman?
Yeah, Alan Rickman. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like swinging that sword, trying to swing it like a baseball bat. And like Kevin Costner's jumping out of the way, like you think he was actually going to hit him.
That's the thing I liked about it is the sheriff was not a man of action. The sheriff was always that duplicitous, behind-the-scenes scoundrel, and he had like the Celts come out and do his dirty work, or he had his own people doing that for him and all that stuff. So I like that when they finally get them to go head-to-head, it is the most awkward fight you'll ever see two actors attempt, but it works within that character, because you don't think he would get his hands dirty doing this. And at the end, it's flat out like, I just got married, and he's like going after him. And as a kid, I'm like, I buy it, like this guy, he just wants to be king that bad that he's going to do.
And I think all of those movies that we mentioned that are on this list have the proper amount for the movie. They might not all equally across the board have the proper amount, but they all have the proper amount of tongue-in-cheek wink at the camera, like understand like this is adventure, this is a story, type of thing, where some of them are a little bit more heavy, but even in that one he's like, I just got married, and like, are you the painted man? Did God paint you? Like, it just has this, like...
Well...
But they treat it seriously. Like,
right.
In universe, they're being serious, even if to us there are those lighthearted moments, and that's the key, is not to try and force punchlines in. Something can be funny and still serious to the characters in universe,
Well, when he says to Little John's kid, he's like, that's your dad? And Little John kid is just like, yeah, and he's like, oh, like.
Well, even like the whole thing when he's fighting Little John at the river or whatever, and then he gets knocked in, and then he looks over, he's like, got any ideas to his name? And he's like, get up, move faster. Move faster. Great idea, And it's like when you're watching that, especially, there's this feeling of you are one of the people in his group meeting these characters, and you feel like you're just a part of the world watching that movie, which that doesn't always happen.
Right. Usually, Robin's
like an outsider.
He's usually already in with the group. Like this time, he got brought into it with us. That's an example of them using a main character as the vehicle for the audience, but in a very good way. I will throw one more. We don't have to discuss it. I totally forgot about this. This movie has to be on this list, at least for me, and that is the original Mummy with Brendan Fraser. The original 90s Mummy.
That's a good fucking
The first Mummy movie.
That is a fun one. My only thing with that one, I remember watching it in the theater going, he took the guy who needs glasses' eyes, and those are his. And there was somebody online that did the whole, well, that's why he thinks Rachel Weisz looks like the girl from the past, because they don't look anything like each other. But, oh, girl, I get it. I can make that out. It must be her, But no, that one again, that is a great movie.
So he just grabs the cat and he's like, hey! And he holds the cat, and the cat hisses and he screams. Yeah, it's just... Okay, the Blip.
The Blip.
Welcome, guys.
Are we starting?
Back. We've started. It has begun.
Oh, you've been
happening.
recording this whole time?
I've been recording a lot longer.
This is the
hang
my
on.
wife is gonna kill me 45-minute intro.
Hang on, my wife's calling. Pause. All right, we're back. Sorry about that interruption, guys.
That's
Matthew,
fine.
I hope you're not
Luckily,
pruning now.
No, we're. I'm gonna take you guys to bed with me.
All right.
And then we can-
Ha-cha-cha-cha.
All
So
right, guys.
what brought up the topic of the blip?
So-
Who brought that up now?
Well, we wanted. Actually, it was kind of where I was hoping to steer the end of the Thor Love and Thunder, and then somebody forgot to charge his phone and disappeared at the end of Love and Thunder. So, I didn't want to go down this road without our good friend Matthew. So we're back. We're giving you guys a nice little mini episode, as mini as it can be, with four guys who like to talk way too much.
Who, us?
Who us? So we're doing a little Blip special episode, kind of following up on our Thor Love and Thunder episode, which has met to great applause. We've had great reaction, tons of views. It's been amazing.
Wait, you already uploaded it?
So, well, it will be before I upload this one.
I don't know how this works. I do mine live.
Then I can't edit out when Matt's nipple slips.
Yeah, true.
So, we're back
Why
here.
would you?
I'm joined again with Sean Scavarna, right over there. Formerly Matthew Rodriguez. He's now out of the bath and is now Bedthew Rodriguez. Other way, Jesse.
Other way.
Yep,
There he is.
And right in below Sean is, of course, Jesse Arnold. Still with that
Hello.
magnificent hair. Other way, Matt. There you go. That is hot.
The brain.
So, tonight we are talking about the Blip. If you are any sort of even a casual MCU fan, you know what we're talking about. The Blip, that 5-year gap for all the people who were snapped away by Thanos, and half the world's population was gone. Now, this is something a lot of reviews have kind of gotten danced around the subject, but I've never really seen anybody tackle this whole thing head on. And the Blip, to me, and I want to see how you guys feel about it, but to me it feels like the most ill thought out part of the MCU. And I think it's really going to hinder them going forward and lead to a lot of plot holes. Just the fact that half the world's population was gone for 5 years. They came back. I mean, right off the bat, dealing with Spider-Man saga, right? So now you've got Peter Parker, you've got MJ, you've got Ned, all these kids, what were they, 16 when they blipped? Technically, they're 21 now. But they're not, because they were gone for 5 years. Now, my wife, when she tried to get her license, had a hell of a time because her mother changed her middle name 2 months after she was born. She gave her one middle name at birth, then decided she should have gone with her other choice and changed it. And that has led to many problems for many years for my wife. But we're to believe that this MCU world can handle half the population being 5 years younger than they actually should be.
Was there a question?
Yes. Well, how do you guys feel about the Blip? Like, that's just where my mind starts going, just to that kind of in-universe stuff. Have you guys thought about the Blip at all, other than just like, oh, it happened, and what it means for the universe, in-universe?
I've thought about how much I hate that they call it the Blip.
Okay.
Wasn't there a different term for maybe one of the movies? Like, not the snap, but like they called it, they kind of called it something. They called it something else, but then I think in Spider-Man they kind of just
They made it
referred to it as the Blip in a sort of a humorous way, and that's what kind of stuck. I want to say there was a different term.
Mm-hmm.
In Endgame, when Scott comes back, he goes to the memorial and he sees all the names, and I believe that it said the Vanished or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, that could be it.
There was another term in Endgame. I know that. Yeah.
Did they call it the Snap? I don't remember. I don't remember them giving it a name, but Spider-Man Far From Home is where they gave it the name the Blip.
Yep.
The kids in the high school, which I thought was a cute, funny thing because they had that really sappy Sarah McLachlan song or whatever playing over like the high school broadcast. Yeah. And I thought that was fun. But when they started referring to that, like other characters in other movies started referring to that, and then like the fan base started referring to that, I was like, no.
It was also known as the Decimation and the Snap. So there's been a few.
I don't think anyone in universe referred to it as the Decimation.
Well, according to MCUWiki.org, they did.
Interesting.
Now, if that's like on a file or a screen in the background somewhere, I will totally accept that. I'm not saying no one did say it, I just don't remember it enough to think they would have used it.
Okay, so let me ask you guys this. What do you think the reasoning was for it to be 5 years?
Dramatic effect.
Yep. Yeah, I think it was just
It reminded me of Transformers the movie, where in 1986 when that came out, the cartoon was in the 80s, but then all of a sudden in the movie they go to 2005, and suddenly it's kind of all bets are off. We can do whatever we want now and paint a whole new picture of this and do a whole new story and not have it be connected to everything because we're taking the movie in a whole different direction. So in that way, I feel like there is that in the idea of it, but there's a whole bunch of logistics that for me is like, so how does this work exactly? And I think that's part of what Matt's talking about with the question here. Like, okay, you had obviously when we see Nick Fury at the end of Far From Home, and like you see the helicopters falling from the sky, or what? Maybe that wasn't Far From Home. It was one of the movies where that was
that was the end of Infinity War, wasn't it?
Infinity War. Okay, sorry. So Infinity War, you see the helicopter crashing into the building because the pilot disappeared, and you see cars without drivers in it and stuff. And then in Homecoming, or no, Far From Home. Sorry, the damn names of the Spider-Man movies are killing me lately. Far From Home, we see that when people returned after Hulk did the snap, then all of a sudden they're right back where they were. So now how does that work with people who were in helicopters and airplanes in the middle of the ocean on a boat or something? It's like there should be so many other people now. It's like they're not just vanished, now they're just freaking dead, even though they came back from this.
Well, and that's the thing. So it seems like the couple cases that we've seen it in was obviously Spider-Man, where it was done in the humorous way. They have the marching band on the basketball court.
Yep.
And then I think Maria Rambeau possibly, or her daughter or something like that in that show.
Monica.
In WandaVision, yeah.
In WandaVision, where she comes back and she's like sitting in the hospital chair, like looking for her mom or her grandma, and
it's chaos, Yeah.
But so in that sense, deep into Phase 4, I would agree with. I think you guys would agree in saying that, like, them referring to the catastrophe that was the Blip, that the ramifications, the catastrophe of the return, I don't think that they've properly produced the right amount of aftermath that would have come from that. I mean, and like, not to say that it would have had to be in every movie, but the ramifications of the ramifications of the Blip, even those in itself was kind of just, we let that roll off our shoulder, in a humorous way. 5 years, not a big deal. And then you see memes online and funny people talking about how like you get home and like your wife got remarried and has another kid already, like type of stuff. Like, so just the fact that they not only took the Blip event in itself and treated it on a surface level as far as the entire world goes, they didn't even really go deep enough with the return. So for me, you're taking a moment that is considered to be, the biggest historical event, let's call it, in MCU history, like in this world's history. It should be the biggest event, and we just kind of roll past it in a way that I don't think gives it justice. And that's where I ask the question, like the 5 years, because if you're going for dramatic effect, you could have even put it down to 6 months. Like, think about people being gone for, like, my dad has only been gone for 6 months, and it's still wrecking me. Like it could, the dramatic effect, if done well, it did not have to be a 5-year span. I just think that that might have been a time period that went in somebody's head, and they kind of shot it out in the meeting, and then they all just kind of agreed and kind of went along with it, not thinking this far ahead.
And it almost feels like they were, it was almost like they felt like, hey, no one will expect us to go 5 years, right? Yeah, 6 months, like everyone's guessing 6 months or, a month or year tops. Let's go 5. Let's blow their minds, but for me, it just done the opposite. It's led to all these thoughts in my head that I can't rectify. Like you said, every Phase 4 movie should be dealing with the ramifications of this, but basically the world's just like good now, with people just blipping back, job positions have been filled,
Well, and there's conveniences.
Go ahead, Jesse.
That was the thing that blew my mind.
Just cut him off.
Sorry.
You're fine. You're fine, Sean. We don't mind when you cut people off because it's only once every, half an hour, 45 minutes.
It blew my mind that pretty much the class in Spider-Man all had the Blip for them to even be in the next movie together. I'm like, well, that's extremely ridiculously convenient that's how it worked versus all of a sudden MJ's 5 years older than Peter, or Ned is now 5 years older and he already graduated from MIT. They could have done something a little different with it and made it actually meaningful. And instead, it's like they said, let's throw the status quo out the window 5 years, but let's keep the status quo within that because otherwise we can't have Ned not be Peter's friend and we can't have MJ not being the romantic. That would have been kind of cool to have MJ grows up, she moves on, and then he meets Mary Jane or he meets Gwen or whatever and play that up or whatever, or Ned moving on, Peter comes back, and then there's the issues and the strain of that relationship. Or there are things. Unfortunately, it writing wise, it's just we're not going to do that. It's too much. We're already dealing with these blockbuster movies. We can't go there. And
I think they could have easily. Betty, I think, would have been the easiest choice.
Yeah,
because then you could have her already working at the Bugle, and she's a little older, so you could have that with her. Not that the other options are bad, but I that would have been the easiest one, and you could have you could still have the meet cute travel romance with Ned and someone else,
sure.
But my problem in Endgame itself, the whole first 10-15 minutes of the movie, it's just we've already seen the dusting at the end of Infinity War and what that was, and we're left for a year. And then it starts off with the Hawkeye and his family, reliving that moment, and then it cuts to all the stuff at Avengers Compound and Tony in space, and them going back together to go fight Thanos, and that whole scene, and Thor being where his mind is and everything. It's one domino after another of things getting knocked down until all right, we're gonna go get Thanos, and it feels like this victorious moment, but it all falls flat for them because he's destroyed the stones. And then that black screen with the 5 years later, it was just felt like an ultimate sucker punch to me, emotionally, I was gutted in that moment. And then you cut to that wide shot of the Hudson and the ballpark and everything, and that whole support group. I thought was really cool. But then the first movie we deal with it afterwards is Spider-Man, and it's played for jokes.
Yeah.
The Blip's played for jokes, which in that movie, that makes sense with as much stuff that Peter's going through. Like, Aunt May is saying that she came back, or someone came back, and they thought, she was a ghost that was having an affair with the wife or the husband or whatever. Like, there was stuff in the movie. Mm-hmm. But then they don't deal with it again till WandaVision, and I thought that scene was amazingly done.
Yes, that's probably the most accurate.
Was really good. And then they deal with it a little bit in Black Widow, or
no, Falcon and
Hawkeye.
Winter Soldier.
No, in Hawkeye they deal with it when Yelena goes to help free the other, and she goes into the bathroom and she's looking herself in the mirror, and then we see her dust and come back and meet. So we see the beginning and the end of the moment.
Right. You saying that just brings up a fantastic point that realistically there could have been stopping and thinking about it, there could have been either a really cool show, like an 8-episode show, or a movie of called The Return, and we just see those Yelena moment, the Captain Marvel moment or Rambo moments where we see how some of the aftermath would just really mind people in situations where again, and you can tell they've tried several times to give us a little taste of that. It's just I get stuck on the 5-year thing. I think Captain 6 months later you would have had the same him at the AA meeting, for people that were lost, he would have been there 6 months later. I guess I don't think that there was any weight to it because they haven't shown us why there was weight to it in the proper way.
I think the reason I think the 5 years works, at least in the context in the movie itself, and I wish they would have addressed it more properly afterwards, is it gives Tony a child that he's attached to. Not that you don't get attached to your child right away, but he's got a child that can talk, interact, and they've developed this bond and this relationship. So you would lose that whole he's got something he can't lose to have him not want to do it. So there's that weight to it, and then I think with 5 years you're they've been living in this world now, we don't get to see the whole thing, but it's they've settled into a new normal, all those boats around the Statue of Liberty, it's all right, the world's clearly different. I would have loved if we got an hour-long docu-series type episode, like a National Geographic type show. Shoot, even just use because Marvel always loves doing the news reporter stuff in the comics. Mm-hmm. Use Leslie Bibb's character from the Iron Man movies to be the host, talking about, for 5 years, this is what life was like, and now all these people are back. You give us one little hour-long special that sets up Winter Soldier with all the refugees, Falcon and the Winter Soldier show, which I thought they really focused on, not necessarily what happened, but the ramifications of that.
Of the return.
And that's one of my favorite of the shows currently. But they just did it for jokes in Spider-Man, and then everything else has just been kind of not as jokey, but
it's definitely they're definitely not trying to make it a discussion point in anything.
Right.
I mean, you know what I mean? Anything coming, as far as I think, it's just like a norm, there was, an earthquake a couple of years ago, and if it's brought up in conversation, we bring it up, but it's not anything we think about, or but again, it's a plot point that's obviously hard to handle regardless, so.
Just think about how COVID shut all of us down.
Yeah.
But now half of the people of the world are gone. So I like the idea of that many. There was definitely a gold mine to mine there.
I just worry that they're not gonna come back to it like they need. Like Matt's saying, now with the new Phase 4 movies, it just whatever. Yes, we all know what happened. We're not going to talk about it. Don't worry about the plot holes it brings up. And it's okay, so at that point, then what was the point of doing it? You know, if you're then just going to kind of brush it aside and just hammer forward.
I think the reason they did it that long was the simple fact that, like the dramatic effect, but if you think about it, it is the biggest loss the Avengers have ever had handed to them. They couldn't stop, as Thanos said, the inevitable. And I like when they did the 5 years later, I remember being in the theater and I actually went, oh, like that like it made your stomach sink to the floor going, they lost. Like there's no way around. They lost. And for characters like Thor, who is somebody that took the brunt emotionally of that moment, that he had the chance to stop everything that happened if he would have aimed for the head like Thanos, like to give him shit about.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I could see why he showed up the way he did in that movie, although a lot of people were stunned. It's like, that man has been wallowing in this since the moment Thanos said those words to his face. Yeah. And 5 years of that man wallowing in it and not being sure he's worthy, wanting to just get away from everybody, play Xbox and threaten the guy who threatens Korg every day at 4:00 or whatever, I mean, to me, it's like that. If they would have went 10 years, that would have been ridiculous. But the fact that 5 years, that is enough time where you're just sitting there. It's a little bit longer than a presidential administration. And when you look at how long some of those can be, you're sitting there going, holy crap, well, look at where I was then and here I am now 4 years later. You got 1 extra year tagged onto that, and it's a lot of stuff. But no, I agree. The more that when you brought this up, I was like, yeah, there's a lot of things to that never have been addressed properly. Not even just the people who come back and they're floating in air because they were in an airplane, like I said earlier. But, what does that do to the people left behind? And what does it do to the people? And they never even really got into that. It's just been, it happened, move on. Kind of like when they redid Rhodey in Iron Man 2. I'm here, it's me, we're moving on. It's like, okay, I guess Rhodey just is Don Cheadle now. That's great. It would have been great if they had recast everybody when they came back, kind of like what they did there. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, Keanu Reeves is Doctor Strange. All right, let's go with it.
That's how they're going to reset the universe after Secret Wars, is they'll mesh all the alternate universes together and we'll get all new, younger actors in the Avengers characters and get Iron Man and Cap back.
Yep. Sure. So now, do you guys think it would have been better, and I threw this out to you a couple days ago, if they had found a way to more reset after the blip? Like, the blip happens, you have those 5 years, but maybe something more akin to like DC's Crisis on Infinite Earths, where at the end of it only a handful of heroes remember and the rest of the population forgets.
That's honestly what I thought they were going to do.
I thought so too.
Because I thought Gamora was going to play more of a hand in the reset of it, just because I know she was integral to the original comic, integral. Yeah. So I thought it was going to be a thing where they snap and it kind of goes back to one of the fights with Thanos and they prevent the blip from happening, kind of a thing.
Sean, Matt, any thoughts? Would it work better for you?
I was thinking about how I would have done it if that was a possibility. Like you're saying, like Tony snaps.
So yeah, that's what I threw out. Hulk snaps and brings everybody back, but then when Tony snaps to get rid of Thanos' army, at the same time he also creates memories for all those people who are gone for 5 years, because as Jesse pointed out, he would not want to lose his daughter. Tony would not want to lose his daughter and all that growth that him and Pepper had. So, but if you could just fill in the blanks for the normal population, and then it's kind of the hero's burden after that, to where you can still have these stories where the heroes, remember it and are changed by it. But for the day-to-day operations, it's just like, no, this is where we're at. It's more of a magical reset.
Okay, so I would if it was me and if I was to go that route, I would do it so that snap happens, people come back, we have the fight scene, and then when Tony snaps, this is just kind of my thought process right here. When Tony snaps, we jump back to Hawkeye and his daughter, and they're about to shoot the arrows, and like maybe Hawkeye goes like he like just has like a little like whoa, like a little like deja vu moment, and her dad's like, or his daughter's like, Dad, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I just had this weird thought. And then when they all meet at the compound later and Black Widow's there and like everyone's alive and maybe they're getting back together as a team or something, like the snap didn't happen. Like we don't have to go back and explain like that it didn't happen.
Right.
But the heroes and the people that were involved in that final battle scene, they know that happened, and from the snap to Tony's snap, all took place in their minds and in their worlds, but then we're reset back to that moment of like before people are blipped. So technically the blip didn't happen in the world. Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. But you still have that growth, and Tony is
Jesse's got to tell me where I was wrong real quick. Where was I wrong?
I have a different thought on how that would work. You would have an isolated pocket of the heroes from the post-Blip world that are doing the mission,
right?
And when whoever does the snap, anyone that's not in the quantum realm in that moment, so you got to have someone with some sort of mental powers that can protect their mind so they don't forget what they're doing. They release the lever. As soon as the snap happens, the other person releases the lever, everybody's back. So those heroes that know what happened come out of the quantum realm or whatever, the phantom zone, or not phantom zone, negative zone, or something. They come back, they know what's going on, they get all the heroes. Cap's already out on the battlefield because Thanos is there. You don't do a second snap. I hate the instant wipe out the enemy trick. They've done it in every movie. They did it in Avengers. They did it in Age of Ultron. They did it in Thor 2.
And to your point there, they didn't really even need to do, and I was going to bring this up later, but like Marvel has done a very good job in their cinematic universe at the power hierarchy. Mm-hmm. They've done as well as you can outside of making Hulk be a little bit, we can talk about his story later, but outside of them like not following through with Hulk's story, they've done a good job at the hierarchy of putting the people in the right instances so that we can believe that there's this sort of hierarchy of power. And so when Captain Marvel shows up, when Scarlet Witch, literally Thanos is about to give up his entire army just to like, so that he doesn't get crushed by Scarlet Witch, like they do good moments like that. So like you're saying, that second snap was for Downey Jr.'s storyline. I don't think it was for the entire universe's story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like looking back at it, I'm sure they might say, well, yeah, we could probably handle it better and not. But it was definitely that moment for Downey Jr., and that's why they went with it.
Well,
maybe his snap could have destroyed the stones and took him with them.
Sure.
It is that thing of he's got the most to lose based on, he in that 5 years time span like we talked about. So there is that feeling of the minute he gets it, it's I'm not letting you take her. She's staying here. I'll go. I'm her dad. I'll make the sacrifice. And when he did it just because he knows if he doesn't do this, they're never going to defeat him any other way,
What?
Go for it.
Go, Jesse.
So he's got Pepper and the kid in the quantum realm or wherever with them, so they don't forget that they existed. Right?
Okay.
Okay.
So they're getting saved. Like he's doing it's selfish but noble, because that's what Tony has always been. But that moment when he does I am Iron Man and goes to snap, he snaps, but he does like the throw thing and he covers the kid with the nano armor like he does to Pepper in Iron Man 3. And that's why he gets destroyed, because he's got the stones in his gauntlet, but the suit doesn't protect him from it.
Okay. So I'll do you one more. We'll stick with that. So he throws the thing, sort of like when Doc Ock gives it back to Spider-Man in the most recent Spider-Man movie. But like he throws it, and then you have Tony there, and you have Tony with his gauntlet, the only thing left, holding the stones. We see it pulsating through. He's back to Tony. He's in the tank top with the little glow from his chest, whatever you want.
Yep.
He's on his knees in his jeans, and she's over there covered. Maybe it covers her in like this cool, like sort of like a dome type of thing. You know what I mean? Like you can make it look really cool.
Sure.
And he says, "I am Iron Man." And when he snaps, the stones just sort of just crumble. They just crumble and disintegrate to the ground. And so then Thanos, you have him who, let's face it, like we're trying to figure out where to go next, but like Thanos, I don't mind him not dying. Like, I mean, he died once already in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind if he, like, his army's gone, the stones are gone. That's his whole journey, is the stones.
Yeah.
So what would he do? He would retreat and try to figure out how to do this, live another day type of thing. That would make more sense from that end. Does that undo some sexy time for Captain America and Peggy? Maybe. But like, I like the idea of Tony reverting all the way back to that first image where he just has the gauntlet and he's like learning how to like shoot out of his palm. And he's back to the very beginning of Iron Man 1, and he's like, I am Iron Man. And he does that. And again, I'm tracking with you on the sense of the whole linchpin of like turn to dust the enemy. I definitely think that storyline wise because turn to dust the enemy, I absolutely adore these movies, and I love being able to talk to them about them like this to you guys, because I definitely love critiquing things about them. But you already used turn the heroes back from dust to like give you this big battle scene, and then you're going to use that same sort of like story plot to like turn the bad guys to dust. Like, I feel like getting the heroes there should have set it up for them to make the villains retreat. You know what I'm saying? I'm tracking with you on that.
Well, I like that idea quite a lot. Real quick, one of the big things with Thanos is that he's in love with death. And right. I mean, what bigger of an idea would this be that he managed to win, but then it got taken from him by what just happened, and the means that he had to make his plan work now are disintegrated. The stones are gone, like you're saying. Then what else is he going to do? And then that opens up, like we were talking in the Thor review about, like eternity. Well, it's like we already introduced that, and then the idea that eventually down the road Thanos finds death finally, and then it's I'm courting death in order to further what I wanted to do initially. Yeah.
I mean, you know my thoughts. I'm sick of the villains always having to die. You know what I mean? Like, why can't we ever just save the villains for a rainy day? You might want them down the road. I would even be okay everything you guys are throwing out is phenomenal, but it got me to thinking, even like, do we have to see Tony die? Or can he just have the stones, he snaps, and he and the stones are gone? More leaving that door open, like, what exactly happened there? That way, in case, comic books, people are known to come back, that leaves you an easy out down the road, but it still goes to the same thing. I think we had the idea at the same time, Matt, is okay, if the stones are gone, Thanos is like, nothing else for me here. I'll go back to my little asteroid and come up with something else. You know?
I have a thought.
I love
And
to
this
hear
helps
your
make...
thoughts.
Could potentially help make Love and Thunder better.
Mhm.
Tony gets the stone. He destroys the stones. Thanos, like, stumbles back. He doesn't have to behead him, but now, you know, Thor's got Stormbreaker again. He hits him with Stormbreaker and Mjolnir. Poof, Thanos is gone.
Yep.
And instead of, like, mimicking the moment where he has with Gamora in the water, he's at Eternity.
Okay.
And Hela walks up.
Yeah.
Oh, snap.
Or Death walks up. I love the theory that was going around that Hela was Death.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't like the fact that she's dead. They probably won't get Cate Blanchett back for a big role, but there's something there. And then because Thor hits him with Stormbreaker, that sets up that moment where he's somewhere he doesn't know where he is, and Death comes up. She's like, "You're, you know, welcome to Eternity," or something like that in the post-credit scene. And we finally see what that means in Thor: Love and Thunder. That hammer. Stormbreaker was the key to Eternity.
Well, and that could have been, and then like Thor: Love and Thunder comes along, and you're kind of you see that same scene, but all of a sudden it cuts to Gore, who's like meditating or something. All of a sudden, like his eyes pop open, or the sword floats up, and he's like, "That's it." Like that was his you know, his aha moment. Like that's how I get to Eternity. They just opened a bridge to it. All I need is that Stormbreaker. You know, and it ties all that in, you know, and that's something that's been missing is the setup to the next movie. Something they did really well in the first few phases, but Phase 4 just seems so disconnected right now with what they're throwing out there.
One of the things I can think of is because it's the multiverse saga. I'm not saying these movies that are happening now are all in alternate dimensions. That would really piss me off if they revealed all of these movies and the things were in different timelines, playing forward from the same moment.
I hadn't even thought of that.
And then America brings them together.
Yeah, and then we recoalesce back into one solid universe. But like, this one feels so chaotic because it's all the multiverse saga now. That I feel like this one's not going to make more sense till we get closer to the end and you look back.
God, what if that is what they're doing? Now that you say it, like you said, everything feels so chaotic right now. Everything feels so isolated.
You're saying that there's a possibility that Feige said, you know what, you guys all get to be chaotic because I'm going to bring you guys all back together,
right? With
these Dynasty movies.
These are our hints, right? Because you know he's just sitting there laughing, like, that's weird that Doctor Strange and Thor and all this don't feel like they're, you know, no one's mentioned the freaking Celestial sticking out of the Earth in Eternals. Wonder why they wouldn't mention that in Thor. You know?
That was another movie for me that I'm like...
I still haven't seen it, but...
It was just so... Like, it could have been, like, better, but it wasn't, so...
I really like Eternals.
I'm not even going to go down that.
Well, and it even gets into our Hulk discussion here, because, number one, they robbed us of the end of Bruce Banner's arc. You know, we go from Infinity War, can't even get Hulk, you know, suffering from ED and all that, to Endgame, and all of a sudden it's like, you know, Hannah Montana, best of both worlds Hulk. So, and we see none of that. I'm still pissed that they never explained that at all. Then we get Shane.
I feel like you mentioned Hannah Montana too often.
It was twice.
What is Hannah Montana? Well, who is that?
It's what's her real name? Lindsay? Not
Miley
Lillian.
Cyrus.
Miley Cyrus. You know.
Okay.
You have teen girls. You know exactly who the fuck Hannah Montana is.
I'm making you explain it.
He's using it also as a reference because Chris Hemsworth's brother was messed up with her for a while, so it all ties together in the multiverse.
Yeah, I totally knew that. But then we see Shang-Chi and that post-credit scene, and now he's back to Bruce, But then from what I hear, I haven't watched the trailer, but then in She-Hulk, we're back to Smart Hulk, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
We're
maybe,
back to Smart Hulk, and also he's healed. So he's got both his arms back.
so we know She-Hulk takes place either well after Endgame or in a completely different fucking multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
Or She-Hulk happens during the blip.
True.
Could be
True.
because I mean, if Emil Blonsky, aka Abomination, and Wong have a partnership in Shang-Chi, which seems like that's already happening.
Jesse
maybe
said
there's
we have to
something there.
keep our shirts on today.
I didn't say you had to. I just
Oh,
said
really?
He'd prefer
preference.
Oh, boy.
But
I gotta make
they
myself
could
a bowl of
do
cereal.
it. I don't think it will be, but they could. But that would be an interesting way to have him still be in Hulk mode with both hands, because he's harnessed that and he's teaching her now how to control it.
How much do you think Bruce is going to be in She-Hulk? Do you think he's going to be a major player, or he's just going to kind of be like the hey,
for budget
here's my cousin.
Budget purposes, I would assume one episode.
Right. Like,
I
hey,
know
I'm
they've
getting
done-
her set up, and now she's on her own.
Yeah, at least that's kind of how I visualize it. Just because I'm thinking about there's a lot of money that is put into digital effects like that, and for them to do two different people for more than one episode, I would think that would be very expensive to do for a TV show budget, in my opinion.
True.
And I imagine it'll be fairly montagey.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It looks
with
that
a
way
couple
just in the
moments.
trailer.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. Like, setting up the connection between them is enough for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was just hoping maybe if it does take place during the blip, that maybe they can give us a couple scenes that explain his transition to Smart Hulk. Finally.
Other than I spent 18 months in a lab, put the brains and the brawn together, like something more than that.
Something actually like, this is how I unlocked it. This is how I figured it out,
I do agree they should have totally given us him turning back into Hulk in like Savage Hulk, Raging Out Hulk during the end of Endgame. Where he goes to like another, like he goes from Small Hulk into the bigger Savage Hulk.
They could have done that instead of Carol, to be honest. But
I was thinking that earlier.
Instead of who?
And so that's the main point. Carol Danvers instead of her.
Yeah.
They could have done that scene with him, and that's why for me, like, unless they're keeping it under wraps and they're not gonna release it for like 10-year anniversary, like, I would have had no problem with, and I'm sure millions of fans agree with me, about having the Infinity War and the Endgame movies have 1 more hour per movie, and there's an extended cut to them, just because I think that there was enough content there. I know there's scenes, they showed one scene, I think Bruce is, Hulk is sort of acting like Batman Vigilante. I think some early stuff was released online. There's like a scene of him jumping, like he like hears a police report and he like goes to like fight a bad guy, and he's got both arms and he's like in that purple kind of jumpsuit thing, and I just definitely think that Hulk, that opening scene in Endgame, or is it Endgame with Thanos? You're good.
Infinity War.
Infinity War, that opening scene where Thanos beats the Hulk out of him, essentially, was completely to be set up for another moment. And the fact that we didn't see that moment really pains me, because and then him trying to get out, like him like trying to get the big guy out, and Tony saying, hey, he's having problems letting the big guy out. Definitely it was setting up for that stuff, him being in the Iron Hulkbuster suit. Everything seemed to be setting up for him to be on that battlefield, and him to say, all right, big guy, let's give him me and you and have that fight. And whether or not it ends in a stalemate or like whatever, but like just that scene.
Well, how cool would it have been, going off my idea, where Tony destroys the stones and, you know, in that second snap, Thanos is like stunned for a moment. You've got Thor, Hulk, and Cap coming in, and all three of them hit him. And like the gamma radiation mixed with the vibranium and Tony made a new element looking at his dad's theme park.
Yeah.
Which I still kind of like. I'm not smart enough to get it, but I was like, okay. But
well, and I think that the moment too with Thor's or Hulk's snap is that they grabbed onto a notion a little bit too tightly. Like he's like, it's almost like I was made for this, and he's got his loose lip thing. Like they didn't even need to have that phrase in it. Like all he literally needs to say is, "I'm Hulk. Out of all of us, I'm the one that might be able to take this." Period. Like it didn't. You know what I mean? But they like made it into this like whole like I'm the only one that can handle it, and then it snaps. Guess what, dude? He handled it. Leave his arm alone. Like.
Or that's what sends him into Savage Hulk. The pain from that shoots him up, or seeing Tony almost die sends him into Big Hulk.
Well, we've seen everybody else get stones to a certain degree, and it changes how they feel, and it leads them down different paths and different things like that. So for him to make that snap and him to feel that power, have him break out.
There's three ways I've thought of this today, because that was something that was being tossed out there. The whole, Hulk never had his moment. And it's like, all right, just us talking now. Okay, he has the gauntlet. He was the one talking about its gamma radiation and its gamma power, and the idea that he does the snap and he's holding this thing, and you don't want him to be Savage Hulk yet. But he does the snap, and it knocks him out, and he falls over. When he wakes up again, it took whatever gamma he absorbed initially to become Hulk, and it's exponential because of these stones. And at that point, he's Savage Hulk, and he's just going for blood, and Thanos is the thing he's pointing at, basically. That's one way I wouldn't have minded seeing it. The second way I wouldn't have minded seeing it is he could still be smart Banner Hulk, and when the portals all open, Wanda, Age of Ultron, she took him over and she sent him crazy through Wakanda. Why couldn't she, once she sees Hulk's in the fight and she's seeing what's happening and like they're trying to get the gauntlet away, but they can't. Thanos keeps getting the gauntlet. Mm-hmm. She looks over at Hulk and she knows what he did previously, and he just wrecked an entire city. She just does her do behind him.
Even if you have Hulk, like he looks at her and he's just like, yeah,
exactly. Like I would have loved it if he would have seen her on the battleground and they both know this is about to happen, and he looks at her, he's like, I hate it when you did it the first time, but we need it this time, or whatever, and then boom, he's like, can you imagine Thanos holding up his hand and he's about to snap, and all of a sudden the big green fist comes in and grabs him, and then you finally hear Hulk smash, and he punches him so hard that he loses the gauntlet. Yes. Like that would have, like if you want to think of a moment that would have made the crowd go nuts over Cap picking up Mjolnir or Avengers Assemble, Hulk he did that in Avengers 1, and it was awesome. Like the minute that Cap goes Hulk smash, everybody went crazy because they knew he was doing it for the right reasons in that movie. The other way I was thinking of it real quick was just the idea of somebody connected to him being on the battleground and seeing them about to get killed, and him just, it's like it bubbles to the surface again. The Hulk is, like it just boom, it comes right out of him again. And Banner's what Matt was saying, okay, let's give him the best of both of us, pal, or whatever, and then boom, he just goes into it. But out of those options, a Wanda team up with him to make the Age of Ultron flip on its head like that, and do it for the right reason would have been freaking amazing. Or the Gamma just overriding everything he did because those stones are more powerful than any Gamma bomb created. So, but Jesse has enough.
No. Playing off of that, they have that moment. They look at each other, and Wanda is like for Natasha, and he goes for Vision, and she does the thing on him. So you bring that into, you get the emotional weight with it too. Not you just layer it, and then like you said, you see Tony does the thing, Thor and Cap are going at Thanos, and then all of a sudden this green wrecking ball, or you even have him like jump up. He jumps through the spaceship from the ground as Carol's coming the other way. Yeah. And it Death Stars it right there in the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that would have been a great, look at
and I
how
love
that
Endgame.
all
Yes.
And Endgame is one of my favorite superhero movies of all time because of how much it gets accomplished and the epic moments. But it is funny that there's still, again, like Thor, these little seeds are still left on the table from previous things. And instead of going there, and I really feel the biggest disservice in that movie had to be Hulk.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that they, like what Matt was saying earlier, they set that up with him having the performance anxiety all through Infinity War. We only saw Hulk in the beginning of that movie. Yeah. So I'm like, in Endgame, he's gonna come and wreck somebody.
I was waiting for it.
Nothing.
It's almost like it needed to be a trilogy. And they needed a Empire movie where it is just like dealing with that 5 years and what they're trying to do, trying to find the people, have the second movie start out with, Captain Marvel bringing them back from space, them going, find out Thanos destroyed the stones, and then just have the second movie be like this 5-year, journey of them trying different things, chasing down different leads, trying to figure out a way to bring them back. And then have Endgame, where Scott comes back out of the quantum realm, and they actually finally find, and even have like that second part end with them basically giving up, like coming to terms with the fact that we can't reverse this, we can't do anything. So here's, and then 3 is Ant-Man comes out, and he's like, wait, I've got an idea, and they're like, of course, why didn't we think of that?
No, here you go. So, to piggyback on the thought process, I love peanut butter, by the way, and I love chocolate milk. When they get hung up on certain moments, and I feel that everything would have been accomplished without those moments, here's one of them. There's only one way out of 7 billion different ways that we can accomplish this. Like, I get it. I get that, like, he's like, I'm going through all the routes, blah, blah, blah. Like, I get it. But just the fact that they got hung up on that there's only one way, Tony, type of thing. Yeah. Everything still would have been accomplished. Tony still could have done the self-sacrifice. Everything could have still gone down the same road. But because they got hung up on that phrasing and that sort of, like, plot point, I feel like that left things...
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I feel like they didn't need that to make that a point.
I think it would have been awesome if they they harped on that. And so there's only one way of doing this, that when Tony gets the stones finally and he does his own snap and they disappear, per what we're talking about, it would have been great for Strange to go, did not see that coming. Because it was not, it was the self-sacrifice all along. He kept talking about, but no, Tony's like, well, I just did my version of it.
Right off the bat, remember though that there's only one way that Strange could see it where Strange survived. Because the Ancient One, was that her name?
Yeah.
Like, she said that you can't see anything past your death. So, he could only see the one way where Strange also survived. So technically there could have been like a dozen ways where Strange died and they brought everyone else back.
I love how selfish asshole like that is, though. That's hysterical to me.
you could play it for serious moments where he's there, he's doing his stuff, and he's looking around, And, we just think he's checking on the thing, and then you realize, oh, he's looking and he's, like, realizing he doesn't do the finger signal to Tony. Like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I like Tony because it's like, he's like, oh, okay, yeah, he just made the decision, and Strange is
It's like
yeah,
a dad making sure that his kid does the right thing, and you, like, make eye contact with him.
Yeah. I like if you would have seen Strange doing all this stuff, but he's watching, or you see his astral form in the background, like, ticking off the things, like, oh, all these things are happening. I mean, that could have been fun.
Mm-hmm. I have a question for you guys then.
Hit me.
Since we do have, by the way, I like jelly too. We have homemade jelly.
But not together.
Grape jelly. Yeah, you take half a spoon of peanut butter and a half a spoon of jelly, and you put it in your mouth, and then you drink chocolate milk.
I like.
You had me up full of chocolate milk.
My question for you guys is, since this 5 years exists,
yes,
and since there is the possibility of, like you're saying, if She-Hulk takes place in this timeline, what are some Marvel movies do you think that could exist? Because we've talked about this before, where I'm turning on lights. Don't worry. We've talked about this before, how they're always thinking about pushing the storyline further into the future time-wise, and I definitely think that they could be making movies that, like, happen sort of on top of each other. So, for instance, Ragnarok was taking place while some of these other movies were taking place. And I feel like that they missed some opportunities with that. So, you guys think that during this 5 years, they could have made Marvel movies, like made Marvel movies take place? What movies would you guys have wanted to see?
I think that would have been a perfect time to get, like, Daredevil and the street level New York heroes into the game. Like, with Spider-Man gone and these other heroes gone, that's when Matt Murdock's like, all right, he has his abilities, he's been training, and he's like, all right, now I need to step up here and use this to fill this gap.
Well, yeah, or you have Hawkeye start, Cap's still around, Hawkeye is still around. Instead of Hawkeye going all Ronin, which was cool and badass, like, he's got to live with that. Now, it did set up Hawkeye, which I did really like that show. But you have Hawkeye on the West Coast. You have him doing West Coast Avengers.
Okay. They're trying to set up all these little teams because they don't have, all the big guns
so they're not dealing with world-ending threats anymore. They're dealing with all these people who are trying to take advantage of the devastation of the blip.
Nice.
Right.
You've got Cap and Natasha are kind of like the hub, watching out for everybody. Maybe you can. It's too late now, but maybe you could have even teased some of the mutants showing up at this point because of, like, you just introduced, like, Professor X and Magneto because of the effects of the snap or whatever. Because they've changed how the mutants have gotten powers in the Ultimate Universe. So.
Yep.
Or, so I think we were talking, this is the Fantastic Four researching off in space, and they get affected by something, trying to find out where everybody went.
Right. Yeah.
You could still have some cosmic stuff, but the street level heroes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it's their time to shine, and
like that's Kingpin's rise to power,
right? And maybe that also
didn't they do that with? Did they do that with? Just the aftermath of. Well, it wasn't the blip. It was the aftermath of Age of Ultron. Which one was the aftermath where, like, Vulture, like, ended up getting, like, all that tech, like, from the Chitauri? Yeah, the first Avengers.
Chitauri.
Like, like, and that you literally have a 5-year period that, like, is prime. And they did a little bit of that with Daredevil, like, post first Avengers, where, like, real estate was super cheap, and they kind of talked about, like, that side of things. Mm-hmm. But they definitely, especially in this 5-year gap, because you have, with that one, you have the Avengers. They win, but the aftermath is definitely devastating to New York. You have this movie and the aftermath of the 5-year gap of the devastation of the world. And so you can literally have these pockets of Kingpins and Vultures and different organizations kind of rising up. on the West Coast, you literally have Cap say, Hawkeye, I need you to go out there. We need to set up a base over there. Like, we are thin. Our ranks are thin. So this actually gives a little bit more purpose in the sense of, like, building a team up and recruiting more and things like that, where you have those built-in reasons. So it's not like, well, we're just going to introduce characters because that's the next thing we should do to get a younger audience. No, like, this is the built-in reason. Hawkeye goes over there and he, like, starts recruiting. So then you got Bucky and Sam. You get these, or wait, Bucky's gone. Sam's gone.
Bucky and Sam are both gone. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it opens the door for a lot of things in a more natural way, in my opinion, to have those things happen. And I don't know if it was just like online rumors, but there were the rumors too of, like, the Avengers. Tony's gone. Cap's kind of doing they have their research facility thing, but they don't have a use for that tower anymore. So, like, some guy buys it. Is it Doom? Yeah. Is it Reed? Does it become the Fantastic Four tower? I think that there are definitely things that could have happened within this time instead of all of us worrying about what's coming next, because time is so hard to balance with this universe, because then all of a sudden you have Thor's 55 and Natasha's 60 and we're gonna trade, so you kind of spread it out a little bit too thin, and we're just trying to kind of revamp all these new characters, where, like, if they would have had that happen, and they might still, you literally have the Fantastic Four movie jump back in, and I would be fine with the entire Fantastic Four movie existing within this 5-year period, and I'd be fine with it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it can. It's just, it's a lot. I don't, Feige, Kevin, I have no jealousy towards him. He's done a fantastic job balancing this much stuff. Obviously, one of the early times on, he took the world building super seriously when, like, I think Simon Pegg had the Ant-Man movie and he was starring in it and everything. Like, they, like, looked at what he was going to do and they were like, nope. Right. And, like, at first everyone was, like, super pissed, because I love Simon Pegg and I think that his movies are fun, but it was early on, and it was before Taika Waititi and all these guys, like, doing their crazy stuff, and Feige looked at the map and was like, we're not ready for that yet. We are going to do our thing and keep it kind of parallel and make sure that nothing goes kind of off the rails too early. And I remember when that happened, when, they said that they kicked him, or they stopped doing his project, Simon Pegg, and there was a lot of backlash about it, but it ended up working out for the best, obviously. Dang, Dooch is on a short leash tonight, huh?
What goes up?
I think it is Edgar Wright who had it.
Edgar Wright. Okay.
He's worked with Simon Pegg many times.
Who's worked with Simon,
but Simon Pegg was going to be the lead, like, he was going to be Ant-Man.
Oh, okay. That part I don't think I remembered.
I'll look it up right now, but I think
it's very probable. He's been in a lot of Edgar Wright's movies.
Okay.
How cool would it have been, you set up West Coast Avengers, you even have the Great Lake Avengers, you bring in
I was going to tell you that earlier. I was going to say,
bring in all these characters.
West Coast and Great Lakes.
Yeah, so you've got all these kind of, like, D-list characters coming in, but they win us over with their charm and their personality.
And Guardians of the Galaxy proved that can be done.
Yes, but then that moment, not that it wasn't awesome, but so you set those guys up in that 5-year span, and you have at the end of Infinity War, they lost, and maybe there is a movie in the middle there where they go to take out Thanos, and, like, the whole beginning of Endgame plays out, and then you do the 5 years later. Like, that would be cool. That would have been a cool way to end it. Everybody dusts, and you just jump to 5 years later. And that, at the end of that movie, at the end of Infinity War, you get a sucker punch. You get that sucker punch right away. You're left with then now we got the 5 years to fill in with stuff, play with some of these other characters. We go to Endgame. You start off with the Hawkeye scene where he loses his kids and everything. And then, you hear the thunder and you cut to the title card there. So now we're into the 5 years later. They come up with the plan. Ant-Man shows up. You carry on the rest of it that way. But that moment when it gets to the end, so you've got the West Coast Avengers, you've got the Great Lakes, you've got what other
You
have
new
warriors
you have
or the defenders, or sorry, is it the defenders? Yeah, you have Iron Fist and Daredevil and that crew in there.
Now, I know part of it was because of rights and Netflix. I know some of that's why none of that got to happen in that moment. But then you get that end scene where Cap goes, "Avengers, assemble," and you see all these different teams of Avengers show up, not just handfuls of random miscellaneous space guys, random miscellaneous Sorcerer Supreme.
And the reason why I loved that moment just because it was Cap's but yeah, being a comic book guy, of course I'm looking at that, I'm like, this isn't the Avengers. In my head, I'm thinking, this isn't the Avengers. This is, like you just said, this is Cap, 5 Avengers, and a bunch of armies. It was obvious.
What if Wanda is so powerful she remanifests herself, almost like Dr. Manhattan?
Right.
So she remanifests herself. So she's around for this, and she remakes a version of Vision that gets to show up in that final battle too. And that could have set up a slightly different version of WandaVision, where she goes into Westview with this false version of him to kind of hide from everybody. And then that sets up her being a little more twisted and weird in Multiverse of Madness.
Well, the movies in between the two, in that 5-year time span, I think it'd be easy to just call them just Avengers Academy. And it's them recruiting every D-list, E-list, F-list person they can. Again, my thing, even when I talked about the Spider-Man coincidence of, everybody in his class, except for that one guy who's macking on MJ, and he was 5 years younger, and now all of a sudden he's a stud guy or whatever, and a basketball player. And it's it's too convenient there. It would have been, I still like the idea of some of these guys shouldn't have even been there for the end of that movie when the snap happens. If you think about it, Bucky, Falcon, those guys are secondary characters they only became primary characters in their own TV show. They've been secondary characters in all the other stuff leading up to that point. Obviously, Black Panther is one of the few who was the main character of his movie, and that was wow, he's gone. That's nuts. That's a franchise guy there. Spider-Man too, and all that stuff. The Guardians almost decimated. But there is this feeling of you still have Thor's there, you still have Cap, you still have Iron Man. There's all of the main guys are still there and accounted for, and it would have been kind of interesting to take even 1 or 2 of those people off the table that were one of the founders, more so, and then have that person in that time period. Imagine Cap going from town to town and trying to find people that have abilities or people that are skilled, and it's who better than freaking Captain America to come up to you and say, I want you for the Avengers. And it's bringing everybody on board. They train at the compound, but then it's almost like the reverse of how Civil War worked, where the government was assigning people to every state, but now you have, it's like Cap and Black Widow now are those people who are doing it, and it's within the Avengers ranks. And
I think Matt wants you to steal third. He's
I think, yeah. Or no, I don't think so.
I need to talk. Okay, so Sean, you're brilliant. I love you. So first of all, we're gonna start. I have to just get this
Uh-oh. Did he get snapped?
Or orgasmed, I can't tell which.
No, I think you're right there.
That's the money shot right there.
What's going on?
For you audio listeners, you need to check out that moment on YouTube.
What just happened?
You made your O face.
You made your O face and you got caught in it for a minute. You're back now, but we didn't hear anything you said.
You son of a... Okay. Right. So, listen. I'm about to make some magic. So,
just did.
Sean.
Okay.
literally Hulk snaps, okay, to bring everybody back. And I don't care what the rules are because the rules are completely made up. But just for a quick hot second, I need to say this before I get onto your Avengers Academy movie. Could you fucking imagine, I have to say that word for this, could you fucking imagine Black Widow walking through her own portal and Cap being like, how? And she's like, I don't know, like, but then like Hulk's there, like, you can't tell me that like Hulk wouldn't snap and like in his head while he's doing the snap, because again, it's one of those things where like, well, the soul needs to be sacrificed so you could have this stone. But guess what? I got the stone now, bitch, so I'm going to wish for whatever I want. I'm going to wish for half the population to disappear. Right. I'm going to wish for my friend Natasha back. Like, I feel like that would have been a moment that people would have completely forgiven because the rules of the stone were made up as they went. Like, that's kind of the point of the stones. So...
Well, I was just going to say, that's another thing I thought was going to happen during the movie. I thought by the end, Natasha was going to be back, like watching Endgame for the first time.
Okay, so now, over to that guy. Avengers Academy. You got Hawkeye moving to the left coast.
Yeah.
I said left, I meant west. But
yeah,
yes,
that one too. Well, when you're looking at the map...
It works, it works. Yeah.
You have Natasha... going to the Great Lakes, or Hulk going to the Great Lakes. You have Steve staying in New York, and you have this natural progression of next gen Avengers coming up. Whether next gen means young or if they mean Daredevil, but you have this natural progression of this group growing, so that once this Phase 4 starts, they're already established because we established them as newbies from this movie where the 5 founders, we have the 5 founders left. One of them's playing video games, getting drunk, and we can't blame him because he did a lot of the heavy lifting in the past couple movies. And so we let him be, but our other 4 founders, they literally go off and they try to recruit as much as they can because they are lost, and that's what they do. And yes, Steve stays home and recruits, and he also helps out with AA meetings because that's the kind of heart he has. But I feel like that route, I mean, you could have Ronan, you could have him doing Ronan stuff in LA and going overseas to Japan or wherever he was at and doing Ronan stuff. Like, his new team could be like, we know it's you, or why do you keep disappearing for 3 days at a time? Like, we can still keep all that, but again, the natural progression of this next generation, where I think that I'm not going to get into all the kind of crazy baloney of like the whole like, oh, they're changing all these characters, races and genders and blah blah blah, and coming up with new characters, whatever. But I'm not going to get into that. But I will say, like, yes, I understand why people have reservations of like just like legitimately immediately starting a new generation for each franchise, and like in this sort of way that they've been doing it, where like I get why the old fan base would be like, well, what the heck? What about us? Every movie I see, you're just replacing my character with a younger version. And I get that there's reasons behind that, and they need to get, a newer, younger fan base. But if they would have done it this way, and you would have had these ragtag heroes and Daredevil and Luke Cage and all these cats in these other movies, you have White Vision as part of that West Coast team, I'm completely down. I love it. Sean, you made a great movie, and yes, it is your turn.
I have more, actually. Because my biggest problem in that 5 years is we don't understand the power vacuum that was left after the blip happened. So we don't know if there is a president. We don't know how the government's even structured. We are focused solely on the Avengers team and the Avengers characters. In the version that I'm thinking of in that 5 years, we have people who have questioned the Avengers' motives now being left behind, while the people who were up for the Avengers, they are gone. And they're like, well, this is what we're given. These are the cards we're dealt. So in the time period of that 5 years, we have Steve, Tony, and everyone else going around and trying to find people with special powers, skills, whatever. But we also have the government who could be, you could actually have Ross being the face of that government now, because they've already established him in Civil War, and he is a part of the Department of Defense. So that, it's like the hierarchy maybe works that he ends up being someone either who has the president's ear, or he's gotten into government further since then, because he's the one coming to the Avengers going, you need to sign the accord, the Sokovian Accords and all that. You have him. Yeah. They start deciding to do the Thunderbolts because everything that happened that led to the snap or the blip or whatever you want to call it was all based around vigilantes who had powers that were not in check by the government, and even they were arrested, but somehow they're still out there doing what they're doing. The government's like, this proves we should not have trusted you. This proves you should have never been the point people for this. We need our own group. We need to make sure that we have security in our country. We need to have people that are responsible to our government, and that we are the ones dictating what's happening, not these people out there. And it makes Civil War have even more weight to it then because of how that worked out. And Tony did the whole, I'm just playing along with it, I just don't want to go to jail or whatever. But it's like, now all of a sudden you have Tony looking at Steve during that 5 years and going, granted he's out in outer space, but you know what I mean? It's that whole thing of, not only did I tell you about Thanos, I wanted to put the world encased in iron so that we could protect it. But now, something I told you about a little while ago, the Sokovian Accord, guess what? That's come to kick us in the ass too, Steve. What are you going to do next? Steve's putting on his jacket, and it's like the old the World War II jacket that he was wearing. It's the whole, I'm going to go find help. He's going out, and he grows
a beard and puts on sunglasses, and he becomes a nomad.
Nomad, exactly. Just go with it for a movie at least. Give him that chance. But I like that idea, because that is a huge problem for me. There's a power vacuum with the government, and if you play into the fears from Civil War and have them pay off in a way where the Avengers flat out are like, we couldn't have stopped this, the government be like, and you're not even sanctioned to be the people representing what we're doing. What the,
Well, and that even calls back to Tony or Nick Fury in the first Avengers, where he's answering to the World Council, and he's like, I don't like. He set off that whole chain of events. Now, granted, they kind of roped him back in during Winter Soldier to an extent that he was playing with the government that set Steve up, but you could even have that where you set up the Thunderbolts. We've got our team players who are going to do things our way. You even have, that the government's starting to manufacture their own villain. Like they cracked the code for the serum or a version of the serum or whatever. But then you have Cap recruiting, but you also have him moving around the country, helping people in small towns. I love that vision of Cap going around and just helping the little people.
Yeah.
Granted, we got that scene with him as the counselor or whatever in that group, but just imagine, it would have been cool to see him going around all over the place. So he's doing the legwork for the people, not as a PR stunt, but just who he is, and that gets the people on. Sticking with the Avengers.
And they're like, was that Captain America? And they're like, I don't know, I don't think so. Because he legitimately goes nomad mode, visually too.
He spoke so well though.
I thought, you can even have jokes like, I thought he'd be taller or whatever.
Sure.
And you get around the whole sexy time with Peggy by bringing What If Peggy into it at some point.
You bring Peggy into anything and I'm good.
Yes.
And I think if we'd taken a minute and we'd seen all this stuff we're talking about, we'd seen all these. Honestly, this is when the Disney Plus show should have come out. It should have been Infinity War, all these Disney West Coast Avengers Disney Plus show, Nomad Disney Plus show, like all these little 5.
Even
6.
if you have WandaVision, because then you have
it still could have taken place in
Vision
there.
for this last battle scene.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of flesh out this world, maybe do an interim movie, and then go into Endgame, and that also would have rolled, real quick, let me finish the thought, that...
Nope.
Because I know, Jesse, you love Falcon and Winter Soldier. That one is my least favorite show, but I think if we kind of seen this world more, and then lead into this group that's fighting for the world that we had, it would have had a bigger impact.
I think that it's why it's Jesse's favorite is because it actually deals with, like, I think there's elements of Winter Soldier that if they would have been put in these other shows post Blip and shown shown what happened, I think that they would have been better because
exactly.
I mean, you get it. The government, they've got it. Thunderbolt Ross, he makes the Thunderbolts. Like, he literally names the team after himself. Let's do the MCU version.
Yep.
He names the team after himself. You literally get all these. I mean, it would work really well in the sense of, like, could you imagine these bad guys are like, we're going to be good guys. Like, you actually use the actual storyline, and they, like, what would be easier for a bad guy than to walk in and be like, the blip just happened, the government trusts us random powered people, and now we're going to fake like we're good guys. Like, to the point where, could you imagine the Thunderbolts being a little side team in that portal that comes through, and they fight as the good guys? How much that would devastate? How much that would devastate people? And if that team fighting with the good guys coming out of that portal in 5 years later ends up being the team that almost destroys this new generation of Avengers, like, it would be freaking epic. And it would be all this underlying, like, the stuff that we've been getting, like, this whole first couple phases. Like, there's this, do it.
Go.
No, I'm right with you.
Somehow they bring Squadron Supreme into this too.
Yeah.
With the Thunderbolts. They're the secret government organ, the Wet Works team, right? Yep. And currently, in one of the worlds, Coulson in the comics ran the Squadron Supreme. So you have them, between them and Thunderbolts, they're like harassing, the heroes in this 5-year period. They come through the portal, and we reveal, now we see that the Squadron Supreme has been working for Coulson, and Coulson finally gets reunited with Cap, and we finally have that payoff.
Love it. Love it, because then you have the Thunderbolts. See, something that they've struggled with a little bit is taking stories that there are already comic books and adding moments to give us joy. So, like, Captain and the Hammer, like, that brought so much joy to people because we're watching movies that, we know kind of what's going to happen, but they're not beat for beat per the comic book. And so when you have the Thunderbolts come in, and you literally have, Zemo was just beat by Black Panther, and, like, you have Thunderbolt Ross recruit Zemo from, like, what if Thunderbolt Ross recruits these villains knowing that they're previous villains and they're faking to be whatever? Like there's so many cool elements that could be done where you're laying the foundation of good villains that have purpose. I love the idea. I'm picturing Thunderbolt Ross outside of a cell and Zemo inside of there, and he's like, Ross is like, I have permission to use you essentially now because half the heroes are gone and the blip happened, so we're gonna convince the government to let us do what we want to do.
Well, I was just thinking real quick, in Captain Marvel, they give you the tip of the nod of the hat that, okay, they used her her pilot name or her pilot code name or whatever that you want to call it to be the name for the Avengers Initiative then.
Yeah.
And then it made me think, okay, Thunderbolt Ross being his age and Thunderbolt Ross already having that hard on about I want to put the heroes under the Sokovian Accords and they have to listen to the government, all this other stuff, and it didn't go well the first time. And he's getting all these other guys, the questionable ones. Not just, I'd say they're questionable more than villainous at this point.
Sure.
And so he's recruiting them the way that Nick Fury would have recruited the Avengers and everything, one by one, and having his own associates doing similar things too, because Coulson was also helping with that, and so was Black Widow. But what I actually like is his team would turn against them. It's like he couldn't wrangle the Avengers, so the villains look at him and go, "You couldn't even control those guys. They had a Hulk. Why do we give a damn about this? You know, it's like we're free, we're out." And, you know, it's like there could be
it'd be like a
bomb in the back of your head,
right? It'd be like a
Suicide Squad,
a Suicide Squad, except there's no bombs. So once they're brought together and they look at him and they're like.
Yeah, well, and that's when you get Zemo being like, "I told you should have put bombs in their heads."
Well,
then you bring in the Squadron Supreme.
Here's the thing: they do the whole like they give Ross a once over. It's the whole we're free, we're not going back. They turn on him, and he's basically left for dead. And it's the whole oh my god, here's Thunderbolt Ross dead, and it's the idea he's not dead. And he willingly does the experiment with the super soldier serum.
Yep.
And then you get your Red Hulk then, and the government then names Thunderbolts after Ross, and they think it's because it's in honor of him, and he was the one to come up with the idea and all this other stuff, and then the Thunderbolts fucking hate it. Because they're like, we're named after the guy we didn't even want to have leading us, and now we're stuck with this name. And then all of a sudden, like later on, you deal with here's Red Hulk now on top of everything else. And it's just, I like how it would be one more thing leading into this is not a good idea. The Avengers were a better idea, and unfortunately, this is backfiring every time we come up with a next level to this.
Well, that's where you get it. You get the hero Ross. He is the villain to their team.
Exactly. He's
what's
her name? Oh crap! Why can't I remember her name now? Viola Davis in Suicide Squad.
Amanda Waller.
Waller. That's it.
But when he turns into Red Hulk, like he's the physical threat to them.
Yes.
Right.
It's like now you're going to take orders because he's intelligent. He's scarier. Like Hulk himself is he's a crazy beast, but Thunderbolt Ross as Red Hulk is a calculating son of a bitch. That would be interesting.
I'm not too familiar with I know some of the characters in Thunderbolts, but I know that they're probably going to be making a Thunderbolts movie anyway. But if you go down some of the thought process though too, it's like I think there's that jetpack mech tech kind of character. Where he was, I think he's the Beetle before, but then he becomes this tech character in Thunderbolts. It's like, no, you just have, what's his name? Yellow Jacket. You have Ant-Man's bad guy fill in that role. Definitely some of the roles can be filled in easily by characters that we already have.
And that's the cool thing about the idea Jesse had earlier, and I was thinking about it, and that just filled a whole nother void for me, is we see the heroes interacting and interspersed within their stories, but we've never seen the villains get that moment really. Like we had Loki and Thanos, but Thanos killed Loki. It's not like there was a cooperative moment, except for when you have Julia Louis-Dreyfus now showing up, and now she's doing what Nick Fury was doing. And I like that in this version, you could have Hela she's now helping Thanos, either that she is death or to find death. And then you have all these characters working together the same way the Avengers would work together. And it's like now all of a sudden a villain who was out there on his own now can call his buddies in. And it's a bigger threat for a single hero versus, everybody did the whole, well, if Thor's in trouble, why doesn't he just call the Avengers? Well, now it's like, well, if Swordsman's in trouble, why aren't the Thunderbolts there? I like that. It's got that, two sides, same coin.
Yep, and that's the thing that they should have done is I get what they're trying to do with Louise Dreyfus in the end of Winter Soldier, but you need to realize they did that with Nick Fury after every movie, near every movie. They had some sort of, whether it was Fury or Black Widow, like there was some thread throughout all of those movies. And so for them to throw it in one scene or two scenes, and then I think at the end of Black Widow, did they do with her, with the daughter or the little sister?
Yelena, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they have 2 moments of that, and they have like 7 or 8 with Nick Fury. So I feel like that they just kind of didn't keep their finger on that pulse quite as much as I wish that they would have. If they would have had Louis Dreyfus at the end of every single Disney Plus show right now, makes a lot more sense to me. Even if she's not just recruiting everybody, and even if Miss Marvel, this little girl, like says, no, I'm not going to be part of your team or whatever, like at least there would have been some continuity in that sort of.
They could easily do that with like a montage scene where she's going and you see her like leaving, talking with people, are like, who's that guy, who's she,
right.
And then
that's true.
I'm okay. I don't like the characters that will be in the Thunderbolts enough to need to have seen that whole thing personally, but you're totally right. Like having her do more of that, if they had done it on every show, I think that would have been annoying. Because it would have been like totally like, oh yeah, this is what they're doing.
But that's how the first 2 phases were. Like we all sat through the shitty credits to wait to see somebody talk about teaming up in the next thing. Like that's kind of how it was.
Well, you could tease with other people. Maybe another one was U.S. Agent talking with somebody.
Yeah.
You're like, who the heck was he talking about? When Coulson finds the hammer at the end of Incredible Hulk, or whatever that was, like you see the hammer, and everyone else who knows comics is like, oh, that's Thor, that's next.
Yep.
People who didn't know were like, what the heck was that? So you introduce someone like
if you have like you just said, if you have a U.S. agent, and I know they're trying to work him into this next movie, but like if they would have not quote unquote killed him, but if you have U.S. agent like show up at some like high risk facility, and he like has all this clearance, and is like, yeah, I got to talk to this guy, and he gets back in there, and it's Yellow Jacket from Ant-Man.
Yeah.
And he's like, what are you doing here? He's like, everyone else gets to make a team. Like, you know what I mean? Like U.S. agent, like you have those moments where, again, it's not just Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She might be behind U.S. agent for that in that scene, but it's just him going and recruiting.
Or we see, what was it, Tinkerer from Spider-Man?
Yeah.
We see him making some more, he's like in a basement. You see a guy with like lights all around him, and then Julia Louis-Dreyfus walks into him, and she's like, how's it going, the next project? And we see the next artifact of another character. Or some, things that might set up the character without revealing the whole deal for people who don't know. He's, yeah.
Well, heck, I mean, in the case of that, I just like the idea that, how's the project going? And then he holds up the U.S. agent shield. And he's like, you think you need it to be a little bit different? A little more him, not a little more Cap, or whatever, and having him fine-tuning the look because they want him to be their agent, not a Cap, but they want to lean into the Cap aspect because they hope that the patriotism will make people follow him like Cap did,
Sure. Well, what if they go really weird and set up someone like Dollmaker?
Yeah.
I'll take him.
You just have this weird room, this guy's sculpting, he's like singing a song, and that teases, the Thing, or some, it sets up something.
Yeah. I'm down for all of it. You guys just made me think of
you don't even act like you were here for
haven't.
We're making magic
You're
over
making
here.
I was listening. But you just reminded me of something, going way off tangent, but at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2,
We don't talk about that. I cried too hard.
Either the mid-credit or the post-credit was setting up Adam Warlock, if I'm correct, right? With the sarcophagus. What the hell happened to that?
He's going to be in the third one.
Yep,
Volume
he is.
3.
He's that ugly-looking kid that you want to punch his face because he just looks like you should punch him in the face.
Have you?
Ugly, he's just British.
Have you seen the movie We Are the Millers?
I have not, but he's Eustace in Chronicles of Narnia, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
Okay.
And he is annoying AF, and in a good way, because
so they've cast him now at least, because the scene was just like the sarcophagus.
Yeah, they are paying it off. They are paying it off.
Because that moment in time with the Guardians is so close to the events of Infinity War and Endgame. Whenever 3 comes out, he's definitely going to be a part of that movie.
Gotcha. It just seems like it's been so long, and I guess I kind of expected it to show up in either Infinity War or Endgame, as a part of that.
That would have been great. And of course, COVID messed up a lot of the plans. I think some of these shows got released out of order and timelines and stuff, and I think some of the struggle we're having with trying to figure out what's going on is because of that reshuffling. I know they took out a whole subplot from Falcon and Winter Soldier where there was a worldwide virus of some sort.
Well, yeah, that's what what were they, flag burners or
the flag smashers?
I think that was the main plot.
Right,
point,
that's what
they kind of had to reshuffle.
That's what the flag smashers were doing. Was they were releasing a global pandemic. Basically, they were.
I'm glad they changed that because I know a lot of people hated that storyline, but I really liked that where they were trying to be that one world, one people, and then she just keeps going further and further. I don't think we got enough build up with them to get invested in it, but I loved the idea of where that was going.
No, I didn't like elements of it. I couldn't.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
So they changed a well-known A-list villain called Flag Smasher from the comic books. That's my favorite villain out of the 152 Avengers villains. They changed that guy to a female lead character and made her young. I hate it.
How dare they?
Folks, we'd like to welcome our new guest co-host for today's episode.
Steven Bisciotti.
Steve Bisciotti is controlling him remotely.
He has remote access to Matt's brain, and he heard us talking about this and is
dialed in.
As soon as you
mentioned,
if you mention a character's name that changed gender from comic book to Marvel Cinematic Universe, he literally logs into my brain real quick.
It's like something wrong is happening.
Beetlejuice.
Bisciotti.
I guess. I think that's a show.
I appreciate you guys, and this is always a blast. You guys know that I always enjoy retooling and revisioning and revamping ideas. I definitely think that there's a lot of places you can go online to just completely dog something and break it down and say how crappy it is. And it's refreshing to hang out and chat with guys that understand these people that are making these movies, they're living the actual dream and they're having a fantastic time doing it. So I think it's and I like poking at stuff, and we talked about Love and Thunder and everything. I don't mind poking at that stuff, but at the end of the day, there's definitely a level of respect that I have for people that are putting that stuff out there and that are slaving away and making these things happen. And so I never wanted to come across as I could have done it better and these people suck and I can't believe they didn't see this for what it was, blah, 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 because I don't understand we're looking at it in hindsight. We're able to dissect it this way, and I love it, but I definitely
appreciate the movies that we've seen, and I love them, but I also love the creative side of the what ifs and the discussion. So I appreciate it very much.
No, absolutely. It's been a great time. And yeah, I want to drive that point home to all our viewers is we have all thoroughly enjoyed these movies. I will take them as is, but that's just the way my mind works. I just start spiraling trying to make some of this stuff make sense in my head. So, and that's when I got to get the boys together and we got to talk it out.
Well,
so
I didn't have a problem with any of this until you brought it up.
Well, it's that whole, the path not traveled thing. It's what the What If TV show was, the premise. It's we got this version, and I love that. It's like the version that we got. I was sitting in the theater just completely, I was cheering and everything else. But then at the end of the day, you look at certain parts and you're like, but if they would have maybe done this, how would that have played out? And that's all that it is. We're not sitting here trying to like crap on anybody. This is what Jesse and I would be doing on a Saturday night when I go over to his place and we just hang out for a couple hours. We'd be spitballing these ideas, and then by the end of the night, we're like, "That's awesome." Well, I want to see that now, but
how many times have we said
the movie
that,
in your head?
We should have recorded that?
I know, and now here we are. Look at us.
And this time, like we did.
You know, our boss at the comic shop, Sean, worked at the comic shop. He worked there too. He would always say, when people started griping on stuff, he's like, look, if you think you can do better, you do better. Like, you can't really tear this stuff down unless you do it. So, I mean, yes, I try to write and be creative, but like, I can't hold a candle to these people. I wouldn't be able to complain about the stuff I didn't like if they didn't do what they did. Yeah. And things won't get better. I mean, you learn from mistakes. So, and maybe by the time we get to the end of Phase 4 and all the pieces fall into place, we're like, Feige was a genius. We were wrong to not like Multiverse of Madness. Like, that was a masterpiece. I will totally eat crow on that if the payoff plays out.
Right. The more... I'm still thinking about that. Each movie taking place in a different universe, and that honestly, the more I think about it, that might be the fix for me. If by the end of this we can go, oh, okay, like that might do it for me. I gotta think on that some more. But yeah, definitely possible. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in with us. Like, smash, be a Hulk, smash that subscribe button if you so choose. If not, oh well. Check out Jesse's YouTube channel, Just Shelve It. He's got great content on there, and he gives away head willingly.
Painted heads.
Yeah, he'll pay them. He'll do whatever you want to so it's
do
great.
Whatever you want.
Check
Don't
out.
taint my family-friendly show with your debauchery.
Hey, I was very good with your arm on last night. I can't believe I got no praise for that. You know how much I held back?
You held back. So did my brother.
Yeah, I like your brother, by the way, Ed.
Everybody likes that brother.
I can't wait to talk to him some more. But check out all of Matthew Rodriguez's amazing ideas for Mars stuff. Modern Wonders, all that.
And text Sean Scabarna and have him do some more art, because I love seeing his art.
Boy.
I got a tiny Toy Haven advertisement. I had to get out the magnifying glass to read.
I will say, for Legends of Grayskull, keep an eye out, because there will be creativity in the pipeline here. So hopefully we're going to have some pretty cool merch finally. Yep. And that was the thing. Matthew Rodriguez.
Did you show Matt that yet?
No, I'm going to after the show, so that he can be excited about it on his own terms, because between you and me, it's been us going back and forth. But yeah, I appreciate and I love the fact that Matthew Rodriguez jumped in and did our Legends of Grayskull characters. Mm-hmm. But the whole time I've been like, I'm supposed to be able to draw too. I gotta do something. It's my podcast, damn it. So it's like, time to shine here, kid. So,
do it. I can't wait to see it.
Hey, Sean.
Yes.
Go get him, kid. Full circle, even if it's not in the podcast.
Beautiful.
Full circle.
All right, guys. Until next time.
See you guys later.
So we head into the bathtub now.
Did you push pause?
Get into the record.
Depends.
Oh,
What are you gonna say?
No, I was just going to put down my phone. I was sick of holding it.
Oh, okay.